Alright. Bear with me. I should be live on Twitch and Kick, and I'm recording this video, just in case, the stream messes up, so, yeah. I'm live, so yeah. How's everyone doing? I hope you're all doing well, and, I'm doing well, thanks for asking. I'm gonna be uploading this to YouTube today or tomorrow, as usual. So yeah, it's Monday, November 18th, 2024. So, let me mute my mic for a second. Hold on. Yeah, sorry about that. Let's resume. So yeah, I'm playing some Forza Motorsport 3, actually. Um, if you're watching on Twitch, link should be in the description. If you're watching on Kick, I'm gonna try and see if I can add links to my YouTube channel later. I have way more content on YouTube than I do on Twitch. Hold on. I also, for some reason, chat is not showing up, so now it is. So it's unlikely, but if someone commented something in chat, I'm sorry, I missed your message. Watching on Twitch, I'm also gonna have stream elements pull up the link. So I forgot to add this before starting my live stream. So on Kick, I'm going to actually add links to my YouTube channel because I have way more content on YouTube than I do on Kick. So. Yeah, I tend to upload all my live streams to YouTube. Maybe not right after I'm done streaming, but usually they'll be uploaded within 24 hours, and YouTube has a feature where you can premiere videos. So I usually premiere them, and I usually at least premiering within 2 days of the stream, and usually within maybe a little more than 24 hours after I stream, so depending on when I stream and when I set the time for the premiere. So I don't have a set time for when I stream on YouTube, or not on YouTube. I don't stream on YouTube anymore. I don't have a set time for when I stream on Twitch or Kick, so, but I'm streaming on both right now, so. I enjoy live streaming and making content for Twitch, YouTube, and this is my first time making content for Kick, but I've never really used Kick before. I've heard of it, but I've never really used it. I've never sat down and just watched anyone on Kick or just streamed on Kick before right now. But I don't really have a set stream schedule other than streaming on Monday through Friday. So I will try to stream 5 days a week, so. I'm thinking about streaming on Saturdays and Sundays. My main issue is that I'm, I don't think I can talk on Saturdays and Sundays because there's going to be a lot of background noise because I live with my family, so probably gonna have my just game volume on if I do stream on Saturday and Sunday. Just a heads up to anyone that so yeah. Car's 10 seconds behind us. That's good. I gonna be watching professional wrestling later today. I'm gonna be watching Monday Night Raw. I'm a huge professional wrestling fan. Um, I know there an AEW pay per views this Saturday. I'll watch WWE and AEW usually. So I know AEW Full Gear's this Saturday, so I'm looking forward to it. I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's gonna be Newark, New Jersey. I'm gonna be watching it live on pay per view. This is gonna be the last lap of the race. It's good for us. What season are we in, actually, for this? I'll have to see. Season 3. I'm pretty sure there's 6 seasons in the career mode for Forza Motorsport 3. So after this season, we'll be halfway done. Actually, had to buy a new Xbox because I don't know why, just my last one wasn't working, so I had to restart the career mode for Forza Motorsport 3, which is unfortunate, but that's, I'm not sure what happened, but just stopped working, wouldn't turn on properly, so that sucks, but I finished like I think 5 seasons on the old Xbox 360 that I had. I think so. I was pretty close to ending the career. Not sure. I was like in the final. I know I did at least year 4. I'm pretty sure I did year 4. It's 226 now. So yeah, I think I did year 5 as well. The 5th season of the career mode. I know for a fact that I did not complete the career mode. But I was able to do most of it last year. Actually had to get a new Xbox, I think, earlier, or it was at the end of last year. Actually, a new Xbox 360. Shit, multiplayer shut down. I would have liked playing on multiplayer in the Forza games, the older Forza games. I wouldn't have been very good at playing against other players, but I would have liked it. So I know when I'm playing racing games, I tend to be good against the computer, but I tend to be bad against other people. So There's gonna be a college basketball game later today. I'm a huge college basketball fan. I watch soccer. The three sports I watch are actually basketball, soccer, and baseball. And the Major League Baseball season ended. I'm a Los Angeles Angels fan. I know I'm wearing a Boston Red Sox jersey, but I'm a Los Angeles Angels fan. And the Angels have the longest postseason drought of any team, the longest active postseason drought. So that kind of sucks. But we haven't made the playoffs since 2014, I think. The only other team that in Major League Baseball that had a active drought as long as us was the Detroit Tigers, but they made the playoffs last season in 2024. The World Series was won by the Los Angeles Dodgers, though. I know Shohei Ohtani, who was a player for the LA Angels for the first several years of his career in Major League Baseball, won the World Series with the Dodgers. So that leaves soccer. The two teams I mainly watch are Real Madrid and I watch Ajax Amsterdam. Uh, I'm unable to watch the Dutch Cup games for Real Madrid. Or not Real Madrid, Ajax Amsterdam. I don't know why I said Real Madrid. The Copa del Rey, at least Real Madrid, I don't think has started the Copa del Rey yet. If it has, I don't think it's available on ESPN. It may not be available on ESPN Plus anymore. So it might be, but if it is, I'll watch them on the Copa del Rey. But I do watch Real Madrid play in La Liga, which is the competition in Spain, the highest level of soccer in Spain, and I watch them play in the UEFA Champions League as well. And I watch Ajax play in the Eredivisie, which is the highest level of soccer in Holland. And I watch them in the Europa League, but because I have Paramount Plus, and that's how I'm able to watch, the Champions League, the Europa League, and the Europa Conference League. And I have ESPN Plus, which is how I'm able to watch La Liga, the Copa del Rey when it was with ESPN. I'm not sure if it's still with ESPN now, and then the Eredivisie, which is able to, which is where Ajax plays. They play in the Eredivisie. I noticed Ajax is playing better this year than last year. Real Madrid has some issues they need to work out because realistically, the only defenders they have are Thibaut Courtois, who's the goalie, but he's injured. I think Andre Lunin is their starting goalie now, and he's been playing well. And then Danny Carvajal is their other really good defender, but he's out for the rest of the year. And really, the only player consistently scoring for Real Madrid is Vinicius Jr. And Bellingham is actually a main consistent scorer for Real Madrid last year. But he's been he's been helping out so much on defense that he really only scored one goal, I think, in either Europe or in La Liga so far this season. So he really hasn't been contributing too much offensively, and that's because it's kind of hard to ask him to contribute offensively and defensively, and he's been helping out on defense in his midfield position. And then for some reason, Carlo Ancelotti hasn't been playing Rodrigo a lot, but Rodrigo's now injured. He's out for like 3 or 4 weeks now. And Rodrigo's actually been playing very well, and he's been helping the team score whenever he plays, but he just hasn't been playing enough. And Arthur Güler and Endrick can score, but for some reason, Carlo Ancelotti just hasn't been playing them, either of them. So I'm not sure why. And then ha- Mbappe's been struggling, so it's, I know the competition in Spain is much more tougher than in France. So I know there's a period of I know I'm trying to cut Mbappe some slack because he is trying to adjust to the level of playing Spain, and he's trying to fit into a new system in Real Madrid as well. So I don't really think it was a good signing for Real Madrid because they had Bellingham, Vinny Jr., and Rodrigo all playing the same position. They all play the same position that Mbappe likes to play, and on the same side. So I think financially it was a good decision for Kylian Mbappe. I'm not going to hate on him for making that decision, but I think in terms of actually playing and like ability, I think Real Madrid may not have been the best fit for him playing wise. And Real Madrid didn't need another scorer. They didn't need another striker or winger. They needed, coming into the season, they really needed some backs. They really needed defenders. And that's their main issue because a lot of their defenders are either injured, they're coming back from injury, or they just haven't been playing to the level they should be. Like Militao is coming back from an ACL injury, and I think he got injured again. I think. I could be wrong. And I think he had an ACL injury. Again, I know he was injured and out for a long time. And I think it was an ACL injury, and those injuries are pretty tough to come back from for any athlete in any sport. It's pretty tough to come back from and play at the level you were prior to an ACL injury, which I'm pretty sure he suffered, but I could be wrong. And then I think he got injured. I think he got an ACL injury in the other ACL, so, which is really bad. And I can't really fault when he came back. I can't really fault him for not playing as well. I've never had an ACL injury. I don't want an ACL injury, and I don't want anyone to have an ACL injury. So I can't really blame him for not playing. I can't really blame Militao for not playing as well. Actually, forget. I know I've seen Mendy play. He just hasn't been playing as well. I think he can for a defender, but I also just don't think maybe like a defender's his natural position. I know Rudiger's a defender, but I don't really think he's a natural defender as well. Some people are. I feel like Rudiger. I'm no soccer expert, so maybe if you watch Real Madrid and if you're more knowledgeable in soccer, which I am, which it doesn't take much to be, I'm pretty sure just about the average person is more knowledgeable in soccer than I am, but. Rudiger seems to be like a more natural midfielder to me than a defender, so. And then Camavinga's not really a natural defender, but I know they play Camavinga in defense as well, so. Mendy hasn't been playing as well as I think he can be, and then Alaba, don't remember if he was injured or not, or if he's been playing or not. Which, if he has been playing, is kind of a bad thing. So. I'm also trying to. Oh gosh, I just don't know what went wrong with Ajax last year. Seemed like they sold all of their best players, and we got talented players in return. Don't get me wrong, they just weren't playing as well as they could have been last season. But it seems like they're playing better now. At least the players we had that were there the season before weren't playing as well the season before. And then the players that we do have there now are playing better than they are last year. Because I know some players have left. Like Francisco Conceição was there last year and the year before, and he just, for example, wasn't playing as well as he did in the season prior. I'm not sure why. Not sure if like the coach wasn't bringing the best out of them or what, but now they're playing better. I know Francisco Conceição is now playing in Portugal, but for the last time I checked, he was playing in Portugal. So, but he's not a bad player. He just didn't play as well last year as he did the season before when I was watching him play for Ajax. But that's said for a lot of players at Ajax. They weren't playing as well. That were at Ajax last year. And, last year was a really rough season. They're at one point in last place in the Eredivisie. And, the players that were there last year and the season before last year, they just weren't playing as well as they had been. And the players that are there now, that were there last season, they're playing much, much better now than they were. Like Brian Brobby's a good player. He just hasn't been. He's been having some trouble scoring up until I think Ajax's last Europa League game. So, but at least he's been trying, though. David Klaassen, who was actually playing in the Juventus last year, signed as a free agent, and he's been playing phenomenally well. So, actually, everyone has been playing phenomenally well for Ajax this year. So, not sure if like the coaches weren't bringing the best out of the Ajax players, or maybe the players just weren't the right fit for what the coaches were trying to do, because they're not bad players. That they just weren't doing as well as they could have been, I think. The one, regardless if they're with Ajax, now or they're now in a different team. The players we had last year weren't bad players. They're actually phenomenally great players. You have to be to play in Holland and to play for Ajax and to finish fifth in the Eredivisie. But it's just as an Ajax fan, are you used to the team finishing at least first or at least in the top three. So I'm not sure if that we just, a lot of them had to get used to playing in Holland, and we as fans were just, or myself as a fan, just holding too much. The expectations were too high were a bit unrealistic for them. So, but regardless if they're not, I'm sure they're good players. They're very talented players. They're definitely better than me. So. I don't know why I'm sweating so much. But, I'm no soccer expert, so when I do watch a team play, I'm just giving my opinion, and it's what I think of the game, and like how they're playing, and by no means am I an expert or anything like that. I'm far from an expert in soccer, so. I noticed the Angels, maybe, I'm not sure if I don't remember what their record were in 2023 and 2024, but the level of play, may not, has improved. It may not have been reflective in the record, but the level of play the players had this past season compared to 2023 has improved, so. I know we had a different coach. And the coaches we had weren't bad coaches as well. It was just, I don't know. Sometimes, you know, sometimes it's the players not playing as well as they should be. You know, and you have the right coach, you just have the wrong players. But sometimes it's just like you have the right players but the wrong coach. Like the coach isn't bringing the best out of the player. And, you know, other times it's just maybe you have like the right coach and the right players, but you have like the wrong scheme, the wrong system. You know, players aren't playing, you know, in the right system that they should be to win games. But you know, for basketball, I don't really follow the NBA or like international basketball. I follow uh, NCAA basketball, and I follow the Little Rock Trojans men's and women's basketball team. So, World Championship race 4 of 7. It's the fastest car we have. So let's go with the Ferrari California. So I don't mind spending some upgrades on it. So Little Rock Trojans, we have for the women's team we have a new coach. Still relatively the same system, minor differences in how we play offense, but I think the women's team is doing just as well, if not better, than they did last season. But to be fair to the women's team last year, for the Little Rock Trojans, they played a really tough schedule. So they made it to the conference tournament, but didn't make it to any of the postseason tournaments, and I felt the women's team should have, based off how they played. I thought the Little Rock Trojans women's team should have went into, you know, either the WNIT, the WBI, or the women's NCAA tournament. I felt that they should have had an at-large bid. So, but they didn't. So there's nothing I can do about it. So the men's team went to the CBI, I think, if I remember correctly, and they unfortunately lost in the first round. So we at least had a postseason appearance. That's other than the conference tournament, but I mean the men's team played well. The men's and women's team played well. You know, if you look at if you look at the record, it was a bit misleading. I think last year, especially for the women's team, it was misleading. The women's team played better than I think their record showed, and the men's team definitely played better, but more so the women's team. I think for the Little Rock Trojans. So I enjoy watching college basketball and soccer and baseball and professional wrestling. I know that professional wrestling's scripted and predetermined, but it's still entertaining to me. So I mainly watch AEW and WWE. I have a slight preference towards WWE. I feel like the quality of WWE television is better. Quality of the wrestlers, the stories, the matches is better. I think in terms of weekly wrestling, I think AEW puts on better wrestling matches than WWE does on a weekly basis. But I think WWE right now has better stories, and the pay-per-views tend to be better than AEW, because the matches for AEW on weekly television tend to be on par with the pay-per-view matches, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when your TV matches are just as good as pay-per-view, it's bad in the sense that they don't really make your pay-per-view matches stand out. What really makes the WWE pay-per-view or the AEW pay-per-view stands out is usually they'll have like a big surprise return or a big surprise appearance. You know, or at least one match that really goes One, I do have to admit, I noted. I say that the pay per view matches are just as good as the weekly matches, but they'll have like one. AW will have like one or two pay per view matches go that exceed expectations and are better than the rest of the pay per view or weekly matches. So if that makes any sense. Whereas WWE, they usually save their best matches for the pay per views. I think. They usually save the big returns for the pay per views and the big, like the AEW does, and they're usually save the best pay per view. They're usually save the best wrestling and the best, turns or twists in the storyline. They usually save it for the pay per view. My only criticism of WWE this year is like they broke up Imperium back in May. They had Ludwig Kaiser attack Giovanni Vinci, and I felt like there was a good story there. And they just instead had Giovanni Vinci turn face for one night only, and then just send him to SmackDown as a heel and not do much with him, if anything at all. And I feel like that was a missed opportunity where he could have feuded with Ludwig Kaiser and Gunther of Imperium. So, feels like they're not going to be doing much with Giovanni Vinci, but it was a story there, and I think they missed it, so. No, with AEW, my main criticism in terms of story is that they have Adam Cole as a good guy, and MJF as a heel, and it should be the other way around, I think. Would have been a much better story. So. Now, at one point, I thought AEW had better, I still think that for the most part, WWE had better stories, but I think the way they were implemented and they were booked was not as good as the way AEW was doing it. But that's more so when Vince was in charge. Vince McMahon was in charge. The quality of the stories in WWE weren't as good as they should have been. WWE had a lot of international shows outside of the US and Canada this year. They had a pay per view and a SmackDown in Germany for the first time ever. It was the first time in 27 years that they actually had a televised event in Germany. Because I know they had Raw in Germany in 1997. And they've been to Germany since then, but they just haven't had a televised event until that SmackDown and then Bash at Berlin pay-per-view. And then they had a SmackDown in Saudi Arabia. And then they had several pay-per-views in Saudi Arabia. They've been doing that for the past couple of years. They've been having pay-per-views in Saudi Arabia since 2018. But they had I think for the first time ever, they had a SmackDown in Saudi Arabia this year. And then they had a Raw within the past month or two in Saudi Arabia as well for the first time ever. And they had a SmackDown in France for the first time ever, and their first ever televised SmackDown in a suburb of Lyon, France. And they had Backlash France in May in a suburb of Lyon. No, actually, last year I think they had SmackDown for the first time ever in Puerto Rico. I could be wrong about that. But I know they had SmackDown in Puerto Rico last year. Because they had Backlash in Puerto Rico last year. Not sure if it was the first SmackDown in Puerto Rico, but I know they had SmackDown in Puerto Rico last year. And I know they're going to have either Raw or SmackDown in one of the two, or if not both. The same show. They're going to have it in Belgium, London. They're going to have it in Italy, and they're going to have it in Spain next year. So, I know they're going to have either a Raw or SmackDown in Brussels, Belgium. And they're gonna have a Raw SmackDown in Barcelona, Spain for the very first time. It's gonna be the first televised event, Raw or SmackDown or pay per view in Belgium and Spain. So yeah, and then it's gonna be at least the third televised event ever from Italy. WWE will have in Italy because they've had in 2007 they've had a Raw and SmackDown in Milan, Italy. And I didn't watch it at the time because I wasn't a WWE fan, but I've seen highlights of it. Because I know SmackDown, or I know Santino Marella debuted in Milan, Italy, and won the Intercontinental Championship in Milan, Italy, and I think that was a Raw. But I know they had Raw and SmackDown in Milan, Italy. So the weekly televised show they're gonna have actually in Bologna, which is the very first time they can have a televised event in Bologna. But it's going to be the third overall event in Italy. It's not their first time in Spain or Belgium, I think. But it's the first time they're going to have a televised event in Belgium and Spain. So I know they shut down NXT UK and they plan on launching NXT UK, or NXT relaunching it as NXT Europe last year, and then they said 2024. Now that it's the middle of November in 2024, it's looking like NXT Europe won't be launched in 2024. So I'm not sure if WWE is still going to launch NXT Europe. I hope they do, because I'd love to have see WWE and more WWE events in Europe as well. Not just Europe, actually. Because I know they went to Scotland this year, and they've had SmackDown in Scotland. And they went to Australia, which is, I know, not in Europe, so. They had a television taping of NXT in Australia, I think in 2017, 2018, and they've had 2 pay-per-views in Australia. So I'd really love for WWE to have, more pay-per-views in Australia, and actually for the first time ever have pay-per-views in New Zealand and the Pacific Islands, and for them to go to other countries in Europe and do more international shows. So I know they can do more international shows in Europe, and if they launch it with NXT, that's a good way to help develop, get professional wrestling in front of a more mainstream audience in Europe and here in the US as well. And, whenever WWE does their European tour, they can do it in countries. They can have their television shows in England or in the UK and outside of England and Europe as well more often, and help bring in European wrestlers from NXT Europe if they were to launch NXT Europe. So I'm not. Last I heard, they were planning on doing NXT Europe, but it was in 2024. But don't have a whole lot of time to launch NXT Europe in 2024, because they have you have 12 days of November and then all of September, and it seems unlikely that they're just make an announcement and launch it. They'll make probably a big announcement and promote it. So it seems unlikely that NXT Europe, if they're gonna launch NXT Europe, it seems unlikely that they're gonna do it in 2024. So I'm hoping that when they go to the UK and Belgium and Belgium and Spain, they'll announce NXT Europe there. So as a developmental branch. It'd be cool to have more pay-per-views outside of the US and Canada, because I know the next WWE pay-per-view is going to be in Vancouver, which I'm all for having WWE pay-per-views in Canada, and WWE, having Raw and SmackDown in Canada as well, because they're going to have Survivor Series War Games in Canada, in Vancouver, and then they're going to Then it's gonna be NXT Deadline, which is gonna be in Minneapolis. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for having shows in the U.S. and Canada, but I'd like to see NXT do more weekly televised shows outside of Florida as well, because they were recently in Philadelphia. Maybe like once or twice a month, NXT can be like having like a show outside of Florida. Yeah, because then I know last month they actually were in Chicago, and then they were in Chesterfield, Missouri, which is a suburb of St. Louis. So, then after Deadline's going to be in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Then I'll have the Royal Rumble in Indianapolis, and for the first time ever, it's actually going to be in February, not January, which I think is going to be pretty cool. It's going to be in Indianapolis, Indiana. Then they actually have the Elimination Chamber in Toronto. So it's going to be like, I think for the fourth consecutive year, the Elimination Chamber is going to be held outside of the US, which I find pretty cool. Because last year, the Elimination Chamber was in 20... Not last year, it was this year. In 2024, this year, it was in Australia. Which is pretty cool. Which I wish they would do, like, maybe like a yearly pay-per-view in, like, the Australia, New Zealand, Pacific Island region. It doesn't have to be the Elimination Chamber. It can be just, maybe during their summer, just, it doesn't have to be like Survivor Series or something. It could be like, I don't know, Bad Blood or something during their summer. I'm not sure how often it rains during Australia, because I remember it raining for a couple times when I went to Australia, but I'm not sure how much it rains in their winter, so, which would be my summer, here in North America. So it'd be nice to like have a SmackDown or Raw in Australia, and then like a yearly pay-per-view in Australia. I know the logistics would be kind of insane. So I know it's like the WrestleMania will be unlikely, which to an extent is understandable due to the logistical side of it. As much as I'd like a WrestleMania in Australia, but maybe like have like a Bad Blood or SummerSlam, or I guess it wouldn't be SummerSlam. I guess for us, but for them, maybe like have like an October, November pay-per-view in Australia. Heck, maybe have a December pay-per-view and then have like Raw or SmackDown air from wherever in Australia they're airing from. And Australia, New Zealand, maybe any of the Pacific Islands like Fiji, Samoa. I'm not sure how feasible that would be, but it'd be nice to see it from those countries. Not just Australia, but Guam, Fiji, Samoa, New Zealand. It'd be nice to see, like, I know Raw emanated from South Africa in the late 1990s. So it'd be nice to have like a pay-per-view and like a pay-per-view or televised event in Africa. Just off the top of my head, probably the best place to host it would probably be South Africa. Like maybe like South Africa, or maybe Lesotho, Eswatini, Ghana. Not sure how feasible or how realistic it would be, but it'd be nice to see more televised events. And then South America as well, like Brazil, Argentina. Countries that are right now currently safe to do it. So it would be I don't know, I'm just rambling, so. So they haven't really announced much of the pay-per-view schedule for WWE, which normally they would at least announce at least some of the pay-per-views. They've announced like the first three. They've announced like WrestleMania is going to be held. They've announced where the Elimination Chamber is, and they've announced where the Royal Rumble is. And usually they would have done a little more than that by now for next year. If not, they would have at least around November, December, they at least announced where maybe where Backlash is, and then where Money in the Bank is, and when it's gonna be in, the June July pay per view is, at least through SummerSlam. They have announced SummerSlam though, but they really haven't announced any of the May, June, July pay per views. I know AEW was in Cardiff, Wales for the first time for Rampage and Dynamite, which is pretty cool. And they were at All In London in Wembley Stadium. I actually went to the first AEW All in 2023. That was in Wembley Stadium as well. It was my first time ever at Wembley Stadium. It's the only time I've been to Wembley Stadium. Actually. I know AEW is going to Australia next year. Probably not gonna watch it live. Probably gonna watch it on delay, but I would like to see the pay-per-view from Australia that AEW puts on. It's gonna be in Brisbane, Australia, and it's gonna be at the Suncorp Stadium. Should be very fun to see. Because when WWE went to Australia at Super Showdown, I actually did see it. I was in class, but I saw part of it live. And then I actually went to the elimination, or not. I didn't go to the Elimination Chamber in Australia last year. I don't know why I said that, but I've never been to a WWE pay per view. But I did watch the Elimination Chamber live, but I have a family member that likes watching wrestling, so I'm gonna watch. So I like watching wrestling with them, so they just weren't able to watch it with me at the time. So I'm gonna watch, AEW together with them for the first time later on that day, not live when it airs. So. Let's see. Now they're also gonna go. AEW is gonna go to Japan. They're gonna go to Tokyo, Japan on January 5th, which is in 2 months, I think. Don't think I'll be watching them live either, but I will watch the pay-per-view. I will try to watch the pay-per-view. I was living in England at the time. AEW went All In. Did the pay-per-view, so I had a family member buy me tickets. So a family member actually, as a gift, bought me tickets to see All In. It was like very far away. It was like in the... Which I'm not complaining about. I'm grateful that they bought me the tickets. I was very happy I got to see All in person. It's at a really, really fun time. At All In. I actually went with a friend, so to see All In. Me and my friend had a good time, so I got to see the Acclaimed win the AEW World Trios Championships. I was really happy about them beating the House of Black. And I know Max Caster of the Acclaimed raps live, and he understandably made a controversial rap, and it's understandable why I say understandably he made, but it's understandable why people are upset, with the rap he made. It wasn't at AEW, it wasn't at All In, but he did make it one time, but he seems to have, learned from it and grown from it and not make the same not use this controversial lyrics in his freestyle raps, which is good that he has learned from it. I'm glad it didn't affect Anthony Bowens though. I like Anthony Bowens. And after the rap, it took me a while for Max to win me back over, but he did. But I've always liked Anthony Bowens, so his Wrap It All In was pretty funny. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely look it up. Remember Saraya won the AW Women's Championship in at All In 2023, which I'm kind of happy that she did. Right, we have three more races in for another World Championship race. So I wonder. So I know WWE is going to be doing shows, televised shows in Canada, the U.S., Belgium, and France, and the U.K. Wonder if they're gonna where else they're gonna do televised shows from. Because they haven't announced the full schedule of like all the televised pay-per-views or TV shows. They usually for Raw and SmackDown they usually announce it like at least 3 months ahead, 2-3 months ahead. They usually won't 2 to 5 months ahead. They usually won't announce like the full year's schedule for Raw and SmackDown. So, but they usually would have announced at least for the pay-per-views. They would have at least come this time November. They would have at least announced the pay-per-views through SummerSlam. More often than not, and they would have at least announced where Raw and SmackDown's being held at least through WrestleMania, which they've done. So maybe they're still finalizing the details for the pay-per-views. So it'd be interesting to see where they're gonna host pay-per-views from, because it seems the past couple of years they've been making more of an effort to have more televised events in different international environments. Because in 2022 they went to Cardiff, Wales. They had Clash at the Castle in Cardiff, Wales. And last year, if I remember correctly, it was either last year or the year before, they actually had Money in the Bank in London. I know it wasn't this year. And 2022, 2021, around that time, they actually had a Elimination Chamber in Saudi Arabia, which I can understand why people are upset, or at least have been upset about WWE hosting pay-per-views in Saudi Arabia. And I can, agree with why people are upset. And I think they definitely had. I think last year was the year they had the Elimination Chamber in Montreal, Canada. So that's cool to see. And they had several shows in So for Raws and SmackDown in Canada as well. And they had a pay-per-view in Canada as well. And they usually, WWE usually hosts a couple of Raws and a couple of SmackDowns in Canada, different cities in Canada. Like I know, earlier this year they had Money in the Bank in Toronto. I think they had SmackDown in Toronto as well, and I know they had a Raw in Ottawa, the capital of Canada. Earlier this year, the Raw after Money in the Bank. They usually have at least one Raw and one SmackDown in Canada every year. Maybe they'll, if not every year, they'll actually, more often than not, they'll have a pay-per-view in Canada at least every year or every other year. It'll be rare for them not to have like at least a non-televised event in. It's rare for them not to have a televised event in Canada. And then I mentioned they went to Germany and France and Saudi Arabia this year. Went to Puerto Rico last year, which is. I wish they'd do more televised events in Puerto Rico because I know wrestling's popular in Puerto Rico. So it'd be nice to see more WWE do more televised events in Puerto Rico because they've had a SmackDown in Puerto Rico and they've had 2 pay-per-views in Puerto Rico as well. And the first televised event ever in France this year, and the first ever televised pay-per-view in France, and 2 televised events in Germany, which is rare. Because they've been to they usually whenever they go to France and Germany, WWE goes to France and Germany, it's usually a non-televised event. So I'm glad they're starting to do televised events more in Europe. And I usually do maybe 1 or 2 televised events in England, or the United Kingdom, I should say. They went to Scotland as well. They went to they did Clash at the Castle at Glasgow this past year. It was in May or June. They had SmackDown in Scotland as well. So it was fairly nice to see a televised event air in Scotland. No, they've had a pay-per-view in Japan. They've had a well, I call it a pay-per-view. It was a network exclusive. It was Beast in the East, and Brock Lesnar wrestled in the main event of that pay-per-view. It was in, I think, Tokyo, and I know the NXT Championship changed hands in Tokyo, Japan, at that network exclusive event. Mentioned they've had a Raw in Italy and Germany and South Africa. And the only other countries they've had Raw from that maybe I haven't mentioned on the top of my head, the only other places, territories and countries, not including the U.S. states, would be like, or DC would be like, they've had it in Mexico, Raw and SmackDown in Mexico in 2011, televised. And they've done a tribute to the troops and a Raw and SmackDown like once or twice in Iraq and Afghanistan at a U.S. military base. In the late 2000s. So once, both countries become free and safe, I really hope that they'll go to Iraq and Afghanistan when both countries are free and safe there. Anyway, change your subject. So I don't know what to talk about now. Well, the college football season is well underway. College basketball season is in its second or third week now. You mentioned that I'm a Little Rock Trojans fan for men's and women's basketball, but realistically, neither team will win the NCAA tournament as much as I want them to, but I'd be happy if they did, but you know. For the women, it's most likely going to be South Carolina winning the NCAA Division I basketball tournament. Not South Carolina, it'll be UConn. But more likely than not, it's going to be South Carolina. And for the men's, I think it's open. More open than the women's, I think. As much as I hate to say it, I think Duke may win. See, out of the SEC, oh gosh. I don't follow men's basketball as much as I used to, so my first instinct was to say Kentucky, but that might not be accurate. I know Alabama's been playing well. Let me get a quick drink. I need to get back and, check to see, because I'm not sure which teams are expected to do well in the men's tournament. I got some Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar with me, by the way. Yeah. I can see Alabama coming out of the SEC. I think they were ranked pretty well. Which is surprising because the University of Alabama is more known for being a really good football school than they are in basketball. Like in college sports, some schools are much more better at football. Like in terms of college sports, football and basketball are probably the two most popular. And some schools are much better at football than basketball, like the University of Connecticut's much more better at men's and women's basketball than they are at football. Whereas Kentucky's much more better at basketball than they are at football, at least historically. Same with North Carolina. Whereas Alabama's been much more better at football than basketball. They're more known as a football school. Arkansas, University of Arkansas is much more much more a football school than basketball. They were good at basketball, and I think in maybe the 40s or 50s, at least they were made a Final Four appearance, and then they were really good in the 90s. But they haven't been as good as they were since the 90s. But football has been more popular, I should say. The university I graduated from, the University of Arkansas at Little Rock, doesn't sponsor football. They did, I think, in the 40s, but not anymore. And I'm talking American football, by the way. So we're more, the two most popular sports are probably basketball and baseball. And a women's team is very good. We weren't, a national powerhouse in men's or women's, but over the past 10, 15 years, our women's team has been better than our men's. And our women's team has been, and at least in the conferences we played in, our women's team has been usually very good in. The men's team were pretty good. They weren't like a nationally ranked team or one of the best teams in the nation, but they were good in the 80s for certain. And they're starting to get better now, so. Not that they were bad, but they weren't, they were just, you know, an average team, I guess, in the 90s and 2000s. So. Don't get me wrong, the teams were better than me, so. So, for all the college basketball fans, UA Little Rock is like a mid major. So, we're. Like basketball and baseball, the popular sports for men's, and I probably say women's basketball is by far the most popular. Then probably it's a toss up between. I'm not sure what's a toss up between soccer and volleyball for women. Because our men, we just have wrestling. For our men's in Division One, we have wrestling, track and field, indoor and outdoor, and then we have basketball and baseball. For men's, and for women's, we have volleyball, we have soccer, we have indoor and outdoor track and field. We have basketball for men and women's, and then we have swimming and diving for women as well. Women's team. So it's about it. That's about it. So we don't have a, and we have men's and women's golf as well. Actually, the newest sport added was actually wrestling, and men's team was ranked for the first time in recently. And normally, in terms of full conference membership, UA Little Rock's a mid-major school, but in wrestling, we're actually a Power 5 school. Although I'm not sure the Pac-12 is now considered a Power 5 school. Being like the Power 4 since the vast majority of Pac-12 teams left, because UA Little Rock is an associate member of the Pac-12. They are only a member of the Pac-12 in wrestling. So I guess when the Pac-12 was a Power 5 school, we were a Power 5. We had a Power 5 sport, but. And then I think our swimming and diving team is part of the Missouri Valley Conference, because we're in the Ohio Valley Conference for the rest of the sports, but the Ohio Valley Conference does not sponsor swimming and diving and does not sponsor wrestling. So it's like the schools have to join another conference as associate members. So, but I know the Pac-12 is gaining some members within the next couple of years because they lost a lot of their members. It's like the Pac-2 now with, I think, Oregon State and Washington State or one of those schools. I know it's in Oregon and Washington. They're like gaining top of my head, Gonzaga in every sport that they sponsor, but they're not getting Gonzaga in football because Gonzaga doesn't sponsor football anymore. And then they're getting Boise State off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure they're getting Boise State. The Little Rock Trojans they represent the University of Arkansas Little Rock, or UA Little Rock, as it's known locally, or Euler as it's known locally. So the Little Rock Trojans were in the Sun Belt for like 2 or 3 decades, but roughly close to 3 decades. But then the Sun Belt Conference wanted to mainly focus on football. So we were one of the two schools kind of forced out. So we left and we joined the Little Rock Trojans joined the Ohio Valley Conference. So Actually, for many of the schools in men's and women's sports were the first time, especially in basketball, were the first time playing a lot of those schools in basketball. So actually, the year we joined the Ohio Valley Conference, that was the very first time we were playing a lot of schools in the Ohio Valley Conference in basketball for certain. And there are actually two teams joining from Division Two. We're now joining Division One. That's the University of Southern Indiana and the Lindenwood University. So that was the very first time we were playing those two schools in sports. I think in just about any sport, so, but especially basketball. So, but I think for the vast majority of schools in the Ohio Valley Conference was our first time playing them in any sport. So, I always look forward to when the schedules are being released to see which schools we're playing for the first time, and when our rivalry game is with Arkansas State, because I'm an alum. I'd never played a sport. I was not affiliated with any of the sports teams at UA Little Rock. I have had classes with people online and in person who have played on various UA Little Rock sports teams, but I've never been like a member as a player or part of the coaching staff. I've never been as part of a member, like the official staff member. So I'm just like a fan of the Little Rock Trojans. So high school sports are very popular here in the U.S. and locally, and then college sports. It's for those of you that don't live in the U.S. College is the same thing as university in the U.S. So if you hear an American say college, we're talking about university. And university sports are very popular here in the U.S. So, like if you went to a university, you're usually a fan of that university's sports teams. So, like the school I went to, UA Little Rock, our biggest rival is Arkansas State University. And I know for the men's team, off the top of my head, we played them recently and lost, unfortunately. And we don't have a winning record against Arkansas State, unfortunately. But every time UA Little Rock meets in a sport against Arkansas State, it's kind of like a big rivalry game. So it's like the one team every UALR athlete wants to beat. So. That's like Arkansas State's our main rival, so. But Arkansas State's in the Sun Belt Conference, so we used to play them twice a year in every sport. Now we just play them at least once, so to maintain that rivalry. So I know different schools have different rivalries, so like it is in any sport, different sports teams have different rivalries with other clubs. Like Ajax's, for example, main rivals are either PSV or Feyenoord. Real Madrid, their main rivalry is with FC Barcelona in La Liga. They'll play Barcelona twice a year. They'll always play Barcelona twice a year in La Liga. Because it's unlikely Barcelona or Real Madrid will get relegated, so. Sometimes they'll play Barcelona more than twice a year if they actually play them, if they meet in the Copa del Rey or European football. But rivalry, it's not as dangerous as it used to be. I know rivalry games there have been a lot of fights and unfortunate deaths in some European football games. It's not that real serious here in the U.S. It's not as dangerous in the U.S. So it's just a rivalry between schools, so or teams. Like I know the Red Sox and Yankees are the biggest rivalries in Major League Baseball. Those two teams hate each other, but trying to think in hockey, I'm not sure what the biggest rivalry is off the top of my head in hockey is. I don't know, to be honest. I'm not that knowledgeable when it comes to hockey in the NHL. Basketball, I'd imagine the biggest rivalry in the NBA is between the Celtics and Lakers. They've met the most in the NBA Finals, so it's always a rivalry between those two squads. Football, American in the NFL, I'm not sure what it is either. You think I know because I like to watch NFL, but I know like I can't think of any off the top of my head. Maybe like just about any team versus New England in the 2000s decade. I'm sure the Cowboys and Steelers had a rivalry when both teams frequently met in the Super Bowl in the 70s and 80s. Cowboys have rivalries with their teams in their division, so going to win the Super Bowl this year because it's looking like Kansas City are the favorites to win the Super Bowl, or at least from the AFC. For you NFL fans out there, who do you think will win the Super Bowl? Because I know the two best teams or the three best teams actually, surprisingly, are Pittsburgh and Buffalo, and Kansas City. I say Pittsburgh because of I wasn't expecting Russell Wilson to do as well as he is doing in not Seattle, but rather Pittsburgh. I thought his best years were behind him and were in Seattle because I know he struggled in Denver. He was with the Seattle Seahawks. He led the Seahawks to a Super Bowl and they played very well. They're consistently good when he was there. But then he went to Denver and he kind of struggled in Denver. And then now he's with Pittsburgh. So I wasn't sure which Russell would show up, the Russell of the Seattle Seahawks or the Russell of the Denver Broncos. But it looks like the Russell Wilson that played well with the Seahawks is showing up now in Pittsburgh for the Steelers. And then you'd expect Buffalo to do well, but I think in order for Buffalo, the main problem with the Buffalo Bills they've been a very good playoff team these past couple of years. A very good team in the regular season. Their main issue is that whenever they meet in the playoffs, they usually meet the Kansas City Chiefs, and they have trouble. They haven't been the Kansas City Chiefs when Patrick Mahomes is there, and over these past couple of seasons. So, like in the mid 2000s, the team to beat in the AFC was Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Like in the 2000s and much of the 2010s. Now it seems to be like the team to beat in the AFC's Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. So in the NFC, say it usually when Tom Brady was more reigned supreme in the 2000s when I started watching, the NFC was kind of more wide open. And it kind of is more wide open now than the AFC. Because in the AFC, from like when I started watching like 2006, 2007, the best team in the AFC was usually the New England Patriots. But you couldn't write out the Chargers and you couldn't write out the Steelers as being like a level or two below the New England Patriots. Like the Chargers never made the Super Bowl when I started watching, so. And the Steelers made a handful of Super Bowls actually, and Tom Brady was there. I think it would be rare for like It was rare, like from like 2001 to maybe like when Tom Brady left. It was rare for like New England not to make it to a Super Bowl. And like the Indianapolis Colts were another team that had a good shot of beating Tom Brady and the New England Patriots when Peyton Manning was there. That was another good team. They're like in the same. They're like a level or two below the Patriots. They're like the same level as the Chargers and the Steelers. If one of those teams could actually beat the Patriots, if a team could beat the Patriots, it would either be the Chargers, Colts, or Steelers in the AFC in the playoffs. And that was usually one of those three teams. Usually would had the best chance of representing the AFC in the Super Bowl, other than New England. Although when Peyton Manning left Indianapolis and he went to Denver, Denver would take Indianapolis's place as the team that had the best chance of beating the Patriots and representing the AFC. But with the AFC, it's always you always knew it was the Patriots, and it was either going to be, if the Patriots weren't representing the AFC, it was either going to be the Chargers had the best chance, or the Steelers or Colts, or Steelers or Broncos when Peyton Manning was there. Usually those four teams had the best chance. Because the Jets were notoriously awful. There were like a handful of seasons where the Jets were actually pretty good. Like 2 seasons where the Jets were pretty good. But the Dolphins weren't really good in the 2000s decade. They didn't really get good until they drafted Tua Tagovailoa. And then Buffalo didn't really get good until they had Josh Allen. Like the Houston Texans weren't really good in the 2000s decade, but they had a handful of playoff appearances in the 2010s. In the early to mid 2010s, but you really couldn't see Houston coming out of the AF. Really couldn't see them getting past the first or second round. Baltimore was another good team. They were like a level or two below the Steelers, Chargers, and Colts. They had, or maybe even when Ray Lewis was there, they were even at that level. They had their defense was on par with the defense of the teams I mentioned. The Steelers, Colts, Patriots. Offense, not so much, but their defense is what really helped them, I think. So you couldn't write out Baltimore as well. And because Baltimore had a Super Bowl appearance and they won. The Browns, no, the Browns haven't been good in forever. It wasn't until really they had Baker Mayfield that they actually, you could see them, making the playoffs. But for some reason, you just can't really see them doing well now. You can't really see them making the playoffs, let alone winning the Super Bowl. The Bengals weren't. The Bengals have a good chance. Had a good chance. I feel like the Bengals they're just missing some pieces now around Joe Burrow. Because they have a good quarterback, and they had a good quarterback in Carson Palmer, I don't know, when they had Carson Palmer and when they had Chad Johnson, they just were maybe missing some pieces on defense or offense. Or they're just missing some pieces to bring them up into a team. And, now that Tom Brady is retired, the main issue is you have to beat Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City. And you can't rely on just a good quarterback. You have to have a good defense to stop Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. So it's hard for me to think of which team in the AFC has the best chance. Because I'd say Buffalo probably has the best chance because their quarterback is just as good as Patrick Mahomes. The main issue is you need a really good defense to stop Patrick Mahomes in the Kansas City offense. That's the main issue. It seems like, I don't know, like the Bengals offense, when the Bengals made the Super Bowl appearance, their offense was just as good as Kansas City. Like you could see, like when they played in the AFC Championship, the game would come down to whoever had the ball last. But now there's like a tier or two below, so it's like really for to beat Patrick Mahomes because they won the Kansas City's won the two consecutive Super Bowls. So like for me to see someone to see a team in the AFC eliminate Kansas City in the playoffs, you have to have either an offense that you have to have a quarterback and the rest of the offense just as good as Kansas City, or you have to have a defense that can really stop. And it seems like so far this season there really hasn't been a defense that can really stop Kansas City. I know Kansas City lost to the Bills yesterday, but they lost to the Bills in the regular season, but they beat the Bills in the playoffs whenever they played. So we'll see what happens in the playoffs. And then it seems like a different team is coming out of the NFC. You can't really, like, when I started watching in the mid to late 2000s, you couldn't really see consistently which team would come out of the NFC. You could for the AFC. You could for the AFC. You could see, like, it was always either going to be the Patriots. If not the Patriots, it's always going to be either the Colts, Steelers, or Chargers, or Ravens. One of those teams. Colts, Steelers, or Chargers. If not, those teams would either be the Ravens or Bengals would be the most unlikely but realistic chance of. But for the NFC, you really couldn't, because it was always really outside of Green Bay doing well. You really was going to be. You could see Green Bay and you could see New Orleans doing well with Drew Brees. But other than that, it really wasn't. Those like the only two teams in the NFC you could see consistently make the playoffs in the NFC. Because Carolina did well with Jake Delhomme, but then they went like 10 years before they got Cam Newton, and then Cam Newton took them a little while, but you could see them getting to the playoffs with Cam Newton. They just never just got all the puzzle pieces together to win the Super Bowl. In Carolina, like San Francisco had a couple of good teams make the Super Bowls in the early 2010s, but they just, like I said, outside of like Green Bay and New Orleans, you really couldn't see a team consistently. Yeah, you can. There's one other team, the New York Giants. The Giants would almost always make the playoffs as well. It's like the Giants, Saints, and Packers would be like the three teams you would expect to do well, but it wasn't as tough as the NFC wasn't as tough as the AFC in my opinion. It's like by the late 2000s decade, no one in the NFC East was really good. Philadelphia, Washington, well outside of New York. In the NFC South, you really only had from like 2007 to maybe about 2010, you really only had New Orleans. The NFC East, you really had New York. The NFC North, you really only had Green Bay. And then the Vikings when they had Brett Favre. But outside of that, no, it took the Vikings a while to get decent again. And then the Lions really weren't very good up until how the Lions managed to play poorly with Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson on their team is beyond me. You have two of the greatest offensive players ever, and they still couldn't surround them with what they need on offense and defense to consistently make the playoffs, and let alone win a playoff game until this past season when both men have since long left. Which, to waste the talents of Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson, it should be a crime in sports. to waste those men's talents. Because I don't know, man. See, in the NFC West, at least by the mid 2000s, or the mid 2010s, you had the Seahawks. Really around 2012, 2013, start really picking it up and getting good. But then, their defense left, Russell Wilson left. Seahawks just haven't been the same. And in the AFC, you have the Raiders. Pretty much, the Las Vegas Raiders have always, well, at least the past couple of decades, have always been a shit show for one reason or another. Don't really expect the Raiders to do well. But actually, for a while, it seemed like Cleveland was like the laughingstock of the NFL, along with the Raiders and Jets. But then the Browns were started doing well for a couple of years, but now not so much. Let me just turn off my mic for a second. Came back. But it seems like, the Jets, outside of those 2 seasons with Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez, haven't been a good team in, like, forever. The Jets haven't been doing well consistently. Jacksonville's another team that, actually, maybe outside of, like, 2017, really can't seem to find, like, Houston. Like at least when Houston and Jacksonville, you would expect, because they're relatively new teams. But then again, the Carolina Panthers have been around just as long as the Jacksonville Jaguars. But the NFC's been much more wide open than the AFC has been. I don't know. I can see Detroit making the Super Bowl this year. I can see I can't see Cleveland making the Super Bowl. I can't see Jacksonville or Houston making the Super Bowl. Detroit, I can. I really can't see. I can't see. I can't see the Bears Minnesota, and Green Bay making the playoffs. If not this year, in the next couple of years. But I can't really see Minnesota winning the Super Bowl anytime soon. I can't see the Bears making the playoffs consistently. I can see Minnesota getting consistently close to the playoffs, but not making the playoffs alone winning. So see the Lions, consistently making the playoffs and getting to the Super Bowl with their squad, surprisingly. And Green Bay, I can see making the playoffs. I just can't really see them winning the Super Bowl. And in NFC, I can't really see New York winning now. I can't really see Washington, I can see Dallas. If Dak Prescott stays healthy and they get the proper on offense, they get the proper, you know, tools to help Dak Prescott. I can see at least the Cowboys making the playoffs. They need to get the proper tools like the right receivers, the right linemen, and then a really good defense for them to win the Super Bowl. But I can see them making the playoffs if Dak stays healthy. And same with Ezekiel Elliott. Philadelphia, I can see making the playoffs as well, but say Philly has one of the better shots of winning the Super Bowl. And then let's see, out of the NFC, I don't. Yeah, Atlanta hasn't been doing as well as I thought they would. With Kirk Cousins as quarterback, I thought they would be doing better. I than they actually are. So I can see maybe in a few years Atlanta doing well. New Orleans, I can really see doing well if we're just missing a few pieces. We're just not. I don't know what we're missing, but I know we're missing a few pieces. So I know I'm not worried about our quarterback situation. I'm more worried about the receivers and run game, and then not necessarily a run game, but the receivers and the defense. Carolina, no, Carolina. I don't really see it due to management making the playoffs, let alone doing well. And then who else? There's this Carolina. There's Atlanta. There's New Orleans, and then there's one other team in the NFC South. The AFC South consists of Houston, which I don't really see. I can if they build around C.J. Stroud on offense, and they get some defenders. I can see actually Houston doing well. They have the right quarterback. They just need to build around it. So, Indianapolis. I don't know why did they. What's going on with their quarterback situation, but if they can figure it out, I can see them at least getting to the playoffs, but that's about it. Tennessee, I think Tennessee had their best chance with Derrick Henry as running back to get to the playoffs, but, they just, for some reason, didn't build around him, and I think their time has passed, and oh gosh. Mentioned Houston, Indianapolis, Tennessee. There's one other team, Jacksonville. I don't really see Jacksonville they have a good quarterback, but outside of their quarterback, I really don't. They're missing a lot. I'm trying to think of the NFC South. Who's there besides Carolina, Atlanta, New Orleans? There's no team in Mississippi or Arkansas. There's no NFC South team in Tennessee. And there's no team in Missouri. Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is the other team. Which I can see Tampa Bay making the playoffs. But it's like whichever team really I can see New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and Carolina make the playoffs, and Atlanta. But I can't really see any of those four teams. I mean, I know one team has to make the playoffs from those four teams. But I can't really see any of those teams winning the Super Bowl with what they currently have. I do think Tampa Bay and Atlanta have the best chance of winning the Super Bowl, but for New Orleans, it's just finding the right coach and the right player group. Whereas I think one thing holding Carolina back is management and really developing the players they have. Whereas I'm not sure, what Atlanta's record is. I have to look it up and see. So they have two good quarterbacks. They have a good quarterback in Kirk Cousins, and they have a good quarterback in Michael Penix Jr. So I'm not too worried about their quarterbacks. Just I'm not sure. I have not been paying attention to how well Atlanta's been doing, so I can't really say how well Atlanta would do or not do in the playoffs. And in Tampa Bay, they have a good quarterback in Baker Mayfield, and at least one good lineman, but I'm not really sure who else there. Outside of that, I'm not sure what they need to work on. They haven't been following the Buccaneers. So in the AFC North, you have. I can see Cincinnati making the playoffs in the NFC North. Just outside of Joe Burrow, I don't really see who would help them get to the playoffs or get past like the. Because I can see Cincinnati as a wild card team, but not maybe getting eliminated in the first or second round. And I can see Baltimore as. Let me put it this way: I can see Baltimore making it to the playoffs, and then I can see Pittsburgh making it to the playoffs as well. Pittsburgh, I can easily see winning with how well they've been playing. I can see Pittsburgh, meeting Kansas City. I'm not sure if they can beat Kansas City, but I can see them. I can see Pittsburgh and Baltimore in the AFC Championship with how well they've been playing. The main issue is maybe if Steelers and Ravens fans can actually educate me on this, but maybe how well their defense would hold up against Kansas City. But just to see how well it's not the offense I'm worried about, because I know the offense, unless for Baltimore the offense is mainly built around Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. So you have two good people there. You can actually help. You can have Derrick Henry helps the Lamar Jackson with the burden of the run game. So and vice versa. So more options for Baltimore there now than the past seasons. It's just I'm not sure how good the defense is. So I'm trying to say. And I don't really see like with. I don't really, like just there's just the quarterback situation never really seems to work itself out in Cleveland. So I don't see Cleveland making the playoffs. And there may have been, I haven't really been paying attention, there may have been some controversy with Deshaun Watson again, unfortunately. Either controversies or injury. So. I don't know. So in the NFC North, you have Detroit, who I can see making the playoffs. In Minnesota, I can see maybe they have Sam Darnold, so I can see them. They're about an average team, maybe first round exit, maybe barely missing the playoffs. With what they have, Green Bay I can see is in the same boat as Minnesota. I can see, and same with Chicago. Chicago's I think a couple of years away from actually making the playoffs and having a good run, because they have Caleb Williams and he just needs experience, and they need to build around Caleb Williams as well. Because outside of Caleb Williams, I'm not sure what they have. So in terms of the AFC East, you have, I know you have New England. They're not as good as they once were. So they're like maybe around barely missing the playoffs if they make it. Um, New York's not making the playoffs as well. The New York Jets. Then you have the uh, Miami. Their main issue is they can do well if they keep Tua Tagovailoa. I was butcher his last name. I'm sorry about that. If they keep him healthy, they have a decent shot of making the playoffs. So the NFC East, Dallas can actually make the playoffs if Dak stays healthy. And I can see them doing well in the playoffs with what they have. Just unfortunately, I think Dak is out for the season. San Francisco, I think, has the best chance of coming out of the NFC again. But I don't really see Seattle. I can see Seattle doing well, but I don't see Seattle making it to the Super Bowl. Definitely not Arizona. They're missing too much because they just have a quarterback. In the AFC, I can see the Chargers making the playoffs. I can see the Rams making the playoffs in the NFC as well. With Matthew Stafford, so it's just I'm not sure who's the favorite to actually come out of the NFC. Maybe San Francisco. I don't see Arizona doing well. I don't see Houston or Jacksonville. I'm gonna plug in my charger now for my laptop because I need to charge my laptop. Hold on. On the NBA, surprisingly, I was not expecting this. The Cleveland Cavaliers are 15-0 so far. I was not expecting them to do as well as they've been. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was expecting Cleveland to make the playoffs. I was just not expecting them to be like the best team in the NBA. I was not expecting Minnesota and New York to do as poorly as they have been. Same with Denver as well. Actually, the Thunder, unsurprisingly, are playing well. Golden State and Dallas you'd expect to play well, but Dallas has lost five straight. Had lost five straight before winning, so they're not doing as well as I thought they would. So you'd expect Dallas to pick it up. Seems like Phoenix really struggles when either Devin Booker or Kevin Durant are injured. I don't think. Who's gonna win the World Series next year? I know the Dodgers have to be favorites. The Yankees as well. The Dodgers actually have to be the favorite in the National League. But with the baseball schedule playing being so long and then playing as many games as they usually do, It's not actually with baseball. It's not necessarily the amount, not necessarily the length of the season in terms of months, but rather the amount of games they play. They play 162 games in a single season for a regular season, so it's really tough for any franchise to win back-to-back years. I don't. It hasn't happened since the Yankees did it from like 90, like the late 90s to the early 2000s. I know there have been teams that have made it to back-to-back World Series since the Yankees have done it, and that's quite impressive. Like the Texas Rangers did it in 2010 and 2011, but they lost the World Series in both years. New York would have actually, or not New York. San Francisco actually won World Series 2 years apart, but not in back-to-back years. San Francisco won in 2010, 2012, and 2014. So 2 years apart, and they didn't actually play in back-to-back World Series. The Dodgers were another team I think may have played in back-to-back World. Dodgers and Astros I think may have been, or at least were close to doing it as well, like the San Francisco Giants. So I wonder who's gonna win in 2025. I want Los Angeles to win, the Angels, but we'd have to play significantly better. Not that we have a bad squad, we have a good squad. It's just a lot of our players are relatively young and not that experienced compared to some of the other teams at the major league level. I don't see the White Sox doing well. They set the record for the most losses in a 162 game season this past year, so it's going to be a while before Chicago can actually turn it around. The White Sox, at least. Cubs, I don't see. They traded away a lot of their good players. I'm a little bit surprised San Diego didn't do as well as they should have. San Diego Padres did not do as well as I thought they were going to do. I thought they were going to be one of the better teams in the National League this year. I can see Atlanta and Los Angeles coming out of the NL. Not San Francisco. San Francisco, I see maybe about an average team. I don't see St. Louis. Mets, no. Phillies, possibly. I can't see Arizona. I don't see the Colorado Rockies doing well based off the recent years. Seeing the AL, I'm surprised that Seattle didn't make the playoffs. They didn't do as well as I thought they would this year. The Mariners. I can kind of see them within the next couple of years. Definitely see. I think New York, definitely based off recent memory, New York has the best shot of winning a World Series. The Yankees, I should say, not the Mets. The Guardians. I'm not entirely sure about the AL Central. Whether it be the Minnesota Twins, Guardians, or Tigers, but definitely not the White Sox. Now, don't get me wrong. I think the Twins, the Tigers, and the Guardians. It's really tough for me to predict who will come out of the Central, but I don't see those three teams coming out. I definitely see those three teams doing better than the Chicago White Sox. I just don't see them winning the World Series. I can see Houston doing well. I can't Really, I'm gonna have to turn on my light. Bear with me. I can't really. I feel like the Texas Rangers can, if they stay healthy. Um, if Texas can stay healthy, I feel like they can. If not, then no, they're gonna struggle like they did last year. Um, I don't see the Athletics making it to the World Series anytime soon. The Cubs, no. No expert on hockey, so we can't predict which team will do well in the Stanley Cup. And one thing I like about hockey, though, is that there are a lot of upsets. There are a lot of upsets in hockey. You never know who's going to do well. Especially in the playoffs. When the playoffs start, it's really anyone's game. Starving, actually. I haven't. All I had was, that Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar. And then I've had oatmeal and a cup of coffee. That's about it. Just to eat or drink today, so I'm a little hungry. I'm actually surprised Inter Miami lost in the playoffs. They lost in the best of three games to Atlanta United. That's kind of shocking with Inter Miami's roster. Alright, we have 2 laps to go. Just realized I've been streaming for almost 2 hours, actually. An hour and 57 minutes, roughly. Time has really flown by. Well, the Little Rock Trojans women's basketball team is playing later today. They're playing the Kansas State Wildcats in Kansas. So I should be watching wrestling live, but I will look at that game after wrestling. Hoping the women's team will win, but the Kansas State Wildcats are ranked 10th in the nation in women's college basketball, so that's going to be a difficult game for the Trojans, but I do think the Trojans can pull off the upset. I know this map mainly from the previous Forza games and the MotoGP video games that I played on Twitch and on my YouTube channel. It's a link my YouTube channel and my Kick channel. So if you're watching this on Kick, you can actually see this stream and much more on my YouTube channel. Been doing YouTube for fun for I've had my YouTube channel since 2009 actually. But I've been doing like consistent uploads since 2014. And yeah. I was actually monetized from like 2014 to 2018, but then YouTube changed their monetization policy. Which meant my channel was no longer monetized. And I got it monetized again actually in April of this year. And it's been monetized ever since, so I don't earn a whole lot of money from YouTube, but I do earn it's like on average $10 to $20 a month from YouTube. Which is not bad. So yeah, pretty soon it'll be 2 hours. I know at least the recording is about 4 seconds longer, so at least the recording will reach 2 hours before the Twitch and Kick stream does, which it just did for the Twitch stream and Kick. Oh, it's already 4:18. It's getting dark earlier, but that's mainly because it's winter. It is November after all in the northern hemisphere. You know, Thanksgiving here in the United States is next week. So a week from Thursday. For those of you that celebrate Thanksgiving, what do you usually do? Usually my family and I will just usually make a really good, nice breakfast and a nice dinner, and that's it. And just usually have a nice meal to eat. One year I went to Dallas to see a Cowboys game. Actually. I'm gonna see if I can get stream elements and Nightbot working in the Kick chat so I can link my YouTube channel. Alright, Montserrat. Been live for over 2 hours now. It's gonna be 4 laps, so it's gonna be a while before we even complete the 6th season, or let alone get back to the where I was on the old Xbox. I actually had my Nintendo Wii for it was like 2008, so 16 years, and the old Xbox I had since 2010, so that lasted long. The Xbox 360 lasted a long time, lasted 13 years really, because it stopped working last year. And the Nintendo Wii, I've had it long and it's still working, thankfully, so. I have an Elgato that to stream the Nintendo Wii and the PS2. I had a cord for it and it's no longer working, so I have to get rid of the cord. So I have to buy a new cord, which I am saving up for. And to actually buy it, and so that way I can actually record PS2 games again and Nintendo Switch games again. Because I would really love, there are some games I would really love to stream. Like on the PS2, I would really love to stream Mario Kart Wii and Super Smash Bros. Brawl, because I love Super Smash Bros. Brawl is probably my favorite game on the Wii to play. I've like unlocked every character in the game, and it would just be nice to play it again and stream it. But I don't have the proper cord to stream it, so I mean I can play it, but it would be nice to stream myself playing it and talk about it. And I like to Mario Kart Wii. I would love to stream myself playing. My only issue is that I'm afraid Nintendo may copyright strike it or copyright claim it, so I have to use the music. So I can't really play it with music. So I'm missing the. So I have to talk, you know. And with the PlayStation 2, that's the PlayStation console I have. I have, off the top of my head, I have MVP 06 NCAA Baseball, which is a fun game to play. I'm not very good at it, but it is a fun game to play. And Shrek Super Party is another game. That game I played as a child, because like the PS2 I had, I originally sold it, but then I got another PS2 for Christmas a couple of years ago, so I was very ecstatic about that. And Shrek Super Party was one of the games. I sold all the games, but Shrek Super Party was one of the games I got as a kid and loved it. And then there's War of the Monsters. I could easily play War of the Monsters for hours upon hours, and I have on my channel. There's an MX versus ATV game that I have that could play for hours upon hours if I could actually, and love to stream it for a long time if I could figure out the proper way to once I get the cord. I didn't play that game much as a kid, but it wasn't until I was like a teenager that I really got the MX versus ATV series. But Shrek Super Party was one of the games I played a ton as a kid, so. I love like if once I get the proper cord for the Elgato I have to stream on the PS2 and Nintendo Wii, I would love to get like some of the older MLB The Show games and play those. Because they put MLB The Show on the Xbox consoles now, which I'm happy. It's just they took out my favorite game mode in the MLB The Show series, which is the rivalry mode. I loved playing the rivalry mode on the PS2, so. So I have to get the cord again. Make sure it's actually working properly before I can actually stream it.